What's going on, everybody? Quick disclaimer, the audio and the video that you're getting ready to watch isn't the best. I don't have time to re-record it, but I just wanted to let you guys know that ahead of time. And I'm extremely annoyed right now. I'm so annoyed. But with that being said, man, I just want to let you know it's not your speakers or anything like that. It's on my end. Enjoy your holiday, enjoy Thanksgiving, and hopefully you enjoy this video and find it informative as well. What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we are headed back on over to the People's Republic of Chicago. Why? Because the People's Republic of Chicago is a city where the foolishness never ends, especially when you have a sanctuary city mayor like Brandon Johnson and sanctuary city governor like J.B. Pritzker running the show that are very much so, in my opinion, pro-crime, obviously, right? And the effects of that is this right here. Check this story out, and then we're going to get into an article to break this down in more detail.
4 people are now charged in connection to a deadly stabbing in the Loop, and we've learned 3 of the accused are teenage boys. The most serious charges right now against a 14-year-old boy and 16-year-old boy. They are both charged with first-degree murder in this situation. Another 14-year-old boy is charged with armed robbery, and then there's a 23-year-old man who's now charged with damage of government property. The victim had no ID and is believed to be experiencing homelessness. He was found just before 7:30 Sunday morning near Wabash and Adams, and he died at the hospital. All 4 suspects are expected in court later today.
Now, here's what they're not telling you. Of course, surprise, surprise. I mean, I guess it is CBS News Chicago, right? It is a CBS affiliate station, right? Here's what they're not telling you. Look at this here. Boom. Stay with me now. You know how much I love air quotes, right? Migrant teenagers charged in fatal stabbing of homeless man in Chicago. These were Venezuelan migrants, okay? And one for sure is illegal based off the wording that we're going to read here. One for sure is illegal. But the reality is that they all came across illegally during the Biden crisis. And, the 2 that are not named as illegal most likely have some sort of protection status on them, by way of the Democrat Party, of course. Therefore, technically making them legal, right, on paper. But we all know the reality of it. You never even heard about Venezuelans in Chicago prior to Biden's migrant crisis. You never heard about that. Now, all of a sudden, Venezuelan migrant this, Venezuelan migrant that. There were no Venezuelans in Chicago to this magnitude prior to the madness of the DNC. But I digress. Let's get into this article here to really break down what happened in a little bit more detail. So as the article title reads, Migrant teenagers charged in a fatal stabbing of homeless man in Chicago. Allow me a moment to scroll down, and then we can break this story down even more. Okay, so the article reads as such. A trio of migrant teenagers were charged in the fatal stabbing of a 49-year-old homeless man in Chicago over the weekend, according to officials. I cannot read this man's first name for nothing, so we'll just say Rodriguez Vasquez, 16, was charged as an adult with first-degree murder in connection with the incident that happened on Sunday morning, according to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. He appeared on Tuesday for a detention hearing in which a judge ordered him to be held pre-trial. 2 14-year-olds were also charged. One was charged with first-degree murder, and the other was charged with armed robbery. The 2 14-year-olds appeared in juvenile court on Monday and were ordered held in custody. You already know off the bat, the 14-year-old that was charged with what, armed robbery, he'll be back on the streets in no time. Lickety split. Even if he was an adult that got charged with armed robbery, he would still be back on the streets quickly. But the fact that he's a juvenile, he'll be back out there in the streets, doing God knows what in no time. But as I take a moment to pivot from here just a little bit before we get back on, so will the 14-year-old that's been charged with first-degree murder. So will he, because he is a juvenile, right? And he's not going to be tried as an adult. And it's not that he can't be. Technically, he can be tried as an adult, but it's borderline impossible. It has to be a special request that's made, by the prosecutors, and then it has to be agreed upon by the judge. It's very rare circumstances where this actually happens. The reality is, it's not going to happen, and since it's not going to happen, and he will be tried as a juvenile 14, he's looking at no more than 7 years in prison. A life is lost, and you only get to lose 7 years of your life at 14, to which you'll come out of prison a very young man just to hit the streets of Chicago again. This is something that I do not agree with at all whatsoever when it comes to like juvenile court and things of this nature. You don't get to live the rest of your life after taking somebody else's life unjustly. That's just how I feel about that. I don't care about you being 14 years old, right? Because the person that died, they don't get to come back. It's over. Game over. Done. Finished. At 49 years old, he's out of here. But you get to engage in murder and then get to walk out with a clean slate as an adult. Because mind you, when you're a juvenile and you get hit with any charge of this magnitude, any charge at all, honestly, if I'm not mistaken, this stuff is sealed. When you become 18, right, and you're an adult, just regardless of what you did, it's not put out there publicly. It's sealed, right? The courts and, obviously the court system has access to it if need be. If you commit another crime, then they can open it up and say, hey, this guy has a history. But as far as job applications are concerned or anything of that nature that you may be doing, nobody else will ever know. To me, that's just wrong. To me, that's wrong. I don't think this person should ever get out. This whole idea that, kids are kids and, the young boys, they have underdeveloped brains. And listen, man, and I'm going to get off my soapbox in a moment concerning this. Kids will be kids is, you're playing baseball or football or any type of ball, right? And like you break your neighbor's window or the window like of a car, you crack somebody's car window or dent somebody's car with the ball. That's kids will be kids. You want to know a silly story of kids will be kids when I was a kid? And this is a dumb story. I want to say maybe I was around, I don't know, we'll say 10 years old, something like that, maybe 11 years old. And me and my cousin were in the backyard and we were throwing rocks back and forth over the shed, right? He was on one side of the shed, I was on the other side of the shed, and we're just throwing rocks at each other. I don't know why we were doing this. I don't know what made us thought that this was a good idea or fun. Like we're just trying to catch the rocks as they're coming over. Long story short, it was fun while it lasted. I didn't catch the rock. And it went bam right on my head. I ran into my aunt's house crying, holding my head, big old knot on my head. And my point is that's kids will be kids, right? They're always doing silly stuff, not thinking. Now, kids not being kids is me and my cousin grabbing a bag of rocks, because for those of you who don't know, I'm from Chicago, grabbing a bag of rocks, right, from his backyard and then going to downtown Chicago and taking those rocks and flinging them at people, thinking that it's funny as we're hurting people, or flinging them at cars as they're driving down the street 35, 40, 45 miles an hour. That's no longer kids being kids. And at that point, you have to be held accountable. And I don't think that should be taken lightly because you're a child. At that point, that has nothing to do with kids being kids. That's completely malicious, just evil behavior and should be treated as such. And with that, I'll step off my soapbox and let's get back into, the article concerning, the 3 Venezuelan migrants that took the life of a homeless man. So let's pivot back over to that article next. Okay, so the article continues. Officials said the victim did not know any of the suspects, right? So just decided to randomly kill him. They couldn't just rob him and take his stuff. They just had to take his life. Animals. All 3 suspects are reportedly from Venezuela, of course, right? The Department of Homeland Security told Fox News that records show Rodriguez Vasquez is believed to have crossed into the U.S. In September of 2023 near Eagle Pass, Texas. He was arrested and released at the time along with his mother. So like I told you, this is one of Biden and Harris's migrants. This is a DNC migrant, right, that came across during the migrant crisis. Assistant State's Attorney Todd Kleist also said in a court filing in the stabbing case that Rodriguez Vasquez contact with Texas law enforcement in 2023 was documented as an alien inadmissibility case, meaning illegal immigrant, right? And mind you, I want to take a moment to just pause for a moment where I believe it stated, if I'm not mistaken, he crossed the border with his mother in 2023. And we talked about this extensively way back during the Biden crisis. We don't even know if that's actually his mother, right? Because what would happen is that if you showed up as an, what is it called again, unaccompanied minor, you get special treatment, and essentially you just get a get out of jail free pass, and welcome to the United States ticket, right? But if you come as a family, you essentially got a fast pass into the States too, right? It was a fast pass to housing, fast pass to just any and everything concerning freebies. And what's happening is that you have the cartel that were smuggling people up into the United States. But what they would do is that they would give legitimate families, those who showed up with children, they would give them a discount if they would allow them to take one of their children and essentially sell them off to another so-called migrant, so that as that migrant attempts to cross the border with their child, they too will get a fast pass into the States, because they weren't doing paternity tests at the border. And there are such things as rapid paternity tests where you can find out, whether or not their children belong to their parents. Biden and Harris, of course, were not doing that, right? So literally anybody could show up at the border with a random child and say, this is my son, this is my daughter, and we would just let them right in. This is something that was happening rampantly at the border, where legitimate families were pawning off their children to get a discount on their cartel ticket, you can say, into the United States, to which then that child will go with a random man or woman. They'll say that this is my kid. They get into the country, and then what would often happen is that once they get shipped off to wherever they went to, whether it was Denver, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, the so-called parent of the child, which he was not, would then ditch the kid and go off about their business. And now the kid is just left alone to fend for themselves, and good luck finding them if you're the actual parent. This is diabolical what was happening, all right? So I say all that to say, this is all foolishness. We don't know who's who and what's what here. So to me, that was just important that I wanted to explain that to you when they're saying that he came along with his mother. You don't even know who this person really is and whether or not that's his actual mother. But I digress. Let's keep going, right? The article reads, Rodriguez Vasquez has no prior criminal history in Illinois, according to Kleist. Prosecutors said the stabbing attack happened at around 5:45 a.m. on Sunday in the Chicago Loop, where the victim was sleeping near his cat and belongings, including a skeleton mask. A group that included Rodriguez Vasquez and two other 14-year-olds allegedly approached the victim while Rodriguez Vasquez had a knife hidden in his sleeve, and the other teenagers had metal rods, according to the prosecutors. One of the teenagers grabbed the victim's mask and ran. When the victim stood up, Rodriguez allegedly kicked him, prosecutors said. One of the 14-year-olds allegedly struck the victim, and Rodriguez Vasquez is accused of stabbing him in the back, causing him to collapse. The attack was captured on surveillance video. These guys are cooked, or at least the 16-year-old is cooked, because the 16-year-old is being charged as an adult. The 14-year-old, with robbery, he'll be out lickety split, and then the 14-year-old that's getting charged with first degree murder, he'll be out in 7 years. So it's very unfortunate. The victim was transported to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death a stab wound to the back, and the manner of death a homicide. Police later detained the teenagers after spotting people on camera wearing the same clothing seen in surveillance footage. Rodriguez Vasquez was found with a knife and he was later identified by his mother and other members of the group. Prosecutors said Rodriguez Vasquez was seen in stills from after the incident displaying a knife to the group, making stabbing motions and wearing the victim's skeleton mask on his head. He was bragging about it. This guy was bragging about it. And we're supposed to be convinced, and we're told that when you come to the border as an unaccompanied minor, right, you're supposed to just allow these folks in. If an unaccompanied minor just popped up at your doorstep, do you just let them in and say, welcome, you live here now? Or do you call the proper authorities to make sure you get them to their home, right? The same thing should apply at the border. If unaccompanied minors appear at the border, I'm going to take you in for a moment because I'm the U.S. government. And you're going to be held in a detention facility, right? But I'm going to take you in temporarily just so we can find out where you belong, and then you get sent back to your country of origin. You don't get to stay here. And it doesn't matter if you come as a family. This is nonsense that families, at least during the Biden administration, this stuff isn't happening now. You're getting this ridiculous priority. You came as a family? Okay. Well, what did Tom Homan said? Families can get deported together. Okay. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. This is very unfortunate and very upsetting because once again, you have lunatics like Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker. They will ignore this stuff. They ignore all of this. People like them will sit up here and say that my words are hurtful for simply reporting on this and simply telling the truth of the matter and reading what the prosecutors said. These are hurtful words, but their actions actually lead to people's death. So-called hurtful words versus deadly actions. These people engage in deadly actions consistently. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegrams in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.